Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, I get to talk to Tyler Christiansen, CEO of Funnel, about their nonprofit H.O.M.E. So, Tyler, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an honor. Yeah, always happy to connect, Brent, especially on this topic.
So, I always like when I hear about something that I maybe am new to, or I hear about a new idea of some sort, I always like to talk about the genesis of that idea. Like, what led to that point where you're like, I have this idea, I want to run with it. So, can we start with where this idea came from? And then I think that will lead us to what it's actually doing, what the goals are, what is H.O.M.E. So can you start with this, the very beginning moment of H.O.M.E.?
Yeah, Brent, I really appreciate that question. And likewise, I like to kind of understand those origins, the why behind it, especially because it's just now finally getting going, and it's been several years in the making for H.O.M.E. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Funnel is a CRM and multifamily. This year we'll pass 1 million units on our platform. We're fortunate to work with very large operators. But you may not know that we originally were Nestio. I was recruited into the company in 2018. I used to be at Entrada. And in 2020, at the beginning of June in 2020, I was asked to be the CEO. I was actually made the CEO on June 4th. That exact same day, my wife unexpectedly went into labor. Obviously, we knew she was pregnant, but didn't know that it was going to happen about a month early. And it was a very, very memorable time for us, obviously. And I remember just a few weeks after that, as I was helping care for our brand new baby, although this is number 5 for me. But, in the sleep deprived late night, changing the baby, I quite honestly had an epiphany. And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but, I think when I became CEO, like many of us in our career, we're always, those of us who are ambitious and are chasing goals, it felt a little bit like the dog catching the car. And I was like, what? So what? And I kept thinking almost a sense of, guilt, I don't know a better word, about what am I going to do now, right? And I obviously had a lot of ideas about the company and our clients and our product. But for myself personally, it was a lot of introspection, and especially, having a child really makes you introspective. And I remember one night I was up with Pearl, middle of the night, and I had this idea. And the idea was, that, hey, our success should be the success of our clients. And we were bringing forward, at that point, we had committed to a product idea, an online leasing product. And the simple idea was $1 per lease. That was all I remembered when I woke up the next morning was, what if $1 per lease we committed to helping others? And really specifically, and we'll unpack this, but, I felt like I didn't want my tenure and Funnel to be this kind of blip on the radar of multifamily that 10 years on, people are like, well, who cares? Yeah, Funnel was a cool product. They had pink, trade show booths, but who cares? I really wanted it to outlast me or the company or anyone else, that we made an impact. And I felt like this model of 1 for 1, $1 for every lease signed would be that. I remember the next morning telling my wife the idea, and I remember feeling like, I think this is a huge idea. I think this is going to be the most important thing I do in my career, more than any individual product, but the idea that we could do that. So I'll pause there because there's lots more to unpack and how it ends up connecting to different things. But yeah, it simply was kind of maybe a sleep deprived night. It's some insecurities about not feeling worthy of leading an important organization, multifamily, and thinking, how can I, as I raise my family, raise this business, how can we, more importantly, give back in a way that lasts and impacts the industry?
So I distinctly remember not being nearly as productive when my kids were that age. So you are well ahead of most out there, because yeah, that sleep deprived there was no brilliant thoughts coming to me at that moment. I don't know what was wrong. But I love that story. I think that's fantastic. And I love the idea of how can we, not just, we're all here to make money, but then how can we leverage that into doing good as well? I think that's fantastic. So let's now shift gears. So now it's a dollar per lease, you said, right? And so now what does that mean for H.O.M.E? So now you have this kind of a funnel of money coming into H.O.M.E. And then what do you do now with that money? How does it work?
Great question. Yeah. So specifically, again, this was 2020. And yeah, to your point, I don't think I had a lot of great thoughts when I'm sleep deprived, but I think it's a little bit like fasting that I highly, occasionally I'll do a fast, and it kind of clears away some of the clutter and you get down to the core principles. And I had also been reading a book that had put some of these ideas in my head. It was Start Something That Matters. The CEO of Tom Shoes, Blake Mycoskie, wrote this book. And so that was back in the back of my brain of, again, is there a way to do this? But specifically in 2020, obviously what was going on, and in addition to COVID and all of us being locked down, there was a lot of hard conversations being had about social justice in the workplace. And it was actually our president now, who at the time was our chief product officer and really is my partner in running the business, Ben Rubin, who, when I shared the idea with him, said, because I said, I don't want this to be about me either. Like, I want this to be the company's idea. And he said, well, everybody at the company is talking about the topic of race. Everyone's talking about what is our role as a software for housing. And so we started, thinking about, well, what is within our lane, right? Like, again, Tom's Shoes, their charity was they gave, shoes because that's what they produced. And I thought, well, what is it? I think there's a way that we can create this charity that is sustainable, that'll last. But where should we help? And obviously our lane is housing. And 2020, we were having really important conversations about the role of race in both the workplace and housing specifically. And so I started doing research, started reading everything I could. And there was real empirical evidence that although our industry certainly has made massive progress from the time fair housing came into the industry, back in the day, there was redlining where, racism was built into the housing industry. There still is data that supports that, there are disadvantaged renters. And this is not to be political at all, but it's a very real thing. There are renters who are shown less apartments. Empirically, statistically, and the advent of technology in some cases can make that worse. So, the inspiration originally was our success should be the success for others. And the way applications work, there's a margin that we can draw from the sustainable. So the $1 per lease, normally that would go to funnels profit, right? You think of any company that does applications or screening, they obviously have this margin built in. So we took from our margin to give there. The really exciting part was, at scale, that, our CRM product today, like I mentioned, is approaching 1 million units on the platform. If our online leasing product saw similar scale, we would be talking about millions of dollars a year that we'd be giving back. And specifically, we know that we can't solve unaffordable housing. We can't solve inequalities in this country, but could we be a model whereby we try and level the playing field? So specifically, kind of the inspiration was what we wanted to give back. But you ask about H.O.M.E, like how did it become this concept? So H.O.M.E stands for Housing Opportunities Make It Equal, H-O-M-E. And we crowdsourced that from our employees when we introduced the idea. So we have this idea. And then one of our employees, Leanna O'Brien, who's still on our team, runs our integrations pod. She came up with the acronym. And I loved it because, again, it is not our job. We cannot fix the past and we can't control the outcomes, but we could be a catalyst towards driving more equality on the opportunity. So housing opportunities made equal. So we'll talk about who we partner with and how we do that. But we wanted to look for ways that if, again, Urban Institute did a survey a few years back where they found that minority renters, and that's a lot of different groups. That's LGBT, that's Black, that's Hispanic, single mothers in many cases, were shown statistically fewer, in some cases up to 20% fewer apartments than their peer set. And so we thought as a company that shows availability, answers questions, we should be committed to not following those practices, but also look for opportunities that with this capital that we were creating through our funnel, as you said, that we would try and find opportunities again to try and level that playing field from the opportunity perspective, not the outcomes, but how do we make sure that the opportunity is equal for everybody? So that's how we went from, this sleep deprived idea to the foundation, which was we want to use our capital and our product to level the opportunity playing field.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they like to think we're an enlightened society and racism is a thing of the past, it doesn't exist anymore. But if you look at the data like you were talking about, it still is there. And, we still have to be proactive in how to approach it. So I think that's a wonderful mission. So let's talk about those partners. Now, what are partners for H.O.M.E? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we legitimately are our own charity. We went through the process, and that took a while just to even get there, especially for a startup like us that didn't have a ton of resources. So I'm on the board of Funnel. I'm also on the board of a separate entity, which is H.O.M.E, by funnel. It's got its own governance, its own documents, but it's approved as an extension of our business. And as we were going through that process of getting started, we also were building this product. At the time of the idea, our online leasing product didn't exist, so there was no money to even dispute, which is why I think, frankly, it was easier to get done, was we weren't giving away something we had. We were giving away future revenues. But that product is now live. It's now live at over 100,000 units, and it's generating impact. So as we were going along this, another thing happened, Brett, in the world. So we knew that we wanted to focus on housing. We knew we wanted to try and focus on creating equal opportunities. But as you and I are very familiar with, from 2020 till about last year, the housing market skyrocketed, right? And rents went up all over the place. And in addition to the evidence that I talked about in terms of discrimination, something else really started happening quickly, which was people couldn't afford to even stay in the homes that they were in because, like I live in Tampa, Florida, and a lot of the really cool, expensive neighborhoods in Tampa are going through what's called gentrification, right? Where people can't even afford to renew their apartments because in Tampa, rents were going up 20% year over year. And if you're in a cool neighborhood like, the Heights, which is kind of going through this process of cool new apartments coming in, a lot of folks are getting priced out of that. And so as we're bringing this product to market, we recognize this problem was happening very quickly. And as a startup, we had a great funding engine, right? That, like I mentioned, if this product follows the path of our CRM or our AI product, even in 2024, we're talking about 6 figures worth of revenue, which for most charities is unheard of, right? Getting funded is the hard part for most charities. For Funnel, our product and business success ties to the charitable success. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to try and create our own huge staff to find who deserves that money, right? How do we donate it here in Tampa? How do we do that? And so we looked to start for partners that were mutually aligned with the goal, the mission of creating more equal opportunity, and specifically in sustainable ways, right? Not just hand to fish, but teach to fish. And I was fortunate that I had interacted in the past with a group called Shelters to Shutters. And Shelters to Shutters this summer rebranded to Entryway. And Entryway's mission is, as the name implies, to be a front door for talent to the multifamily industry. And so those who are not familiar, and we did a lot of research and making sure that we felt aligned, they don't just drop in and hand off checks. They help people get certified as maintenance technicians in our industry, leasing agents in our industry, and get those people both a job and a home and a skill where they can then take that opportunity again and run with it, right? What they do with that is each individual's, it's in their hands to control that outcome. But the opportunity is where Entryway is focused. And so we felt, and also empirically, the majority of their participants are, people of color. They're people who are disadvantaged. It's single mothers, victims of domestic abuse. And these are the individuals that, like you said, it is not a level playing field. They are starting out. They can't get a job because they don't have an address, right? And in many cases, they don't want to be talking about those things because, again, they're going through difficult times. These are situationally homeless individuals. And so we just felt incredibly aligned with the organization. They have a new CEO, David Williams, who was previously the CEO of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And we thought, wow, what a great partner that as we bring our funding mechanism to the market, they have an incredible distribution is how we think about it in sales. They find the people, they find the individuals. So I now am on the advisory board of the Central Florida Committee. They have an executive director, Jessica Corden, who works day and night with local partners to find individuals and find apartments, and they're the connective tissue. So we help bring funding to, make sure they have the staff they need and the resources they need. But they're doing the hard work of bringing it all together, both available apartments, jobs that need to be filled with partners, and we're there to support that. So we are super excited. They were our partner for 2023, working on announcements hopefully for 2024. But so far, it's been a wonderful partnership. And as we think about Funnel in the future, we think that there's a lot we can do there. But first and foremost, we want to take advantage of others who have already put in a lot of hard work to make that impact, and make sure that we're making a lasting impact in multifamily.
I love the way you kind of approach getting buy-in for this, where it's like it doesn't exist yet. It's easy to allocate some portion of that, and companies are always developing new business units, and just to bake that into the business plan for that business unit is probably a lot easier than trying to just pull some existing profit away to do some. I mean, everyone wants to do charitable work, but this seems like a a much easier approach to getting everybody to say, sure, why not? Let's go for it. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of H.O.M.E. So every year, do you select a new partner to go with, or how does that work?
Yeah, so 2023 was the first year we had any revenue to donate. So we partnered at the silver level, I think it is, within Entryway, where we made a $10,000 donation. We actually had to privately fund that through individuals to even get it started. Now the company, again, the product is off and running, and so it's self-funding. And so that was kind of our first year. I think that we are going to continue to evaluate, and that's a requirement for us, that we have oversight on an annual basis and make sure, it is. I could see it being a very sustainable model where we are, again, the funding mechanism. Let me tell you, though, how I think this has a multiplying effect. So as mentioned, let's say that we are the next onsite. That's the last company that created a standalone application leasing workflow. And we've moved a lot of customers off onsite onto Funnel. Obviously, today that world is changing rapidly because now there's a lot of fraud tools, which we also do. But if we had similar success to those products, this would be the largest charity in multifamily by a long shot. We're talking millions of dollars a year in philanthropic impact. And so I think the distribution of that is something I don't want to be overly deterministic about. I think that at some point we probably will need our own staff. At some point we probably will partner with multiple organizations. And also a lot of our partners have great charities within them, right? So Camden and MAA is public REITs, Essex, they have individual organizations. MAA does this. It's kind of like the Ronald McDonald House charities, where they open up available apartments to families of children who need to stay at the hospital. They call it Open Arms. And so we would love to participate with groups like that are already clients of ours, and they're also helping fund it. Just wonderful, virtuous cycle. But one of the really cool things, Brent, when I think about the future of this, so we had to make a determination, and again, we'll continue to evaluate this, of why not why not just donate them? Why do we need our own charity if we're just handing it off? Or why not create a foundation, right? And there's different approaches to this problem. The reason we went with a full-blown public charity is because we think that there is a multiplication that can happen here, where not only is Funnel as the core contributor taking from the potential profit of our product. Now, as we mentioned, also our customers are excited about participating in this. But I want you to think about this really cool scenario that we're working on creating, which is, Brent, you go to sign your lease, and it's a wonderful experience because you're using Funnel's online leasing product, which we do. The majority of our applicants do it via mobile. The majority are done in less than 10 minutes. They're just going through their phone quickly. They got the application process done. We want to visualize for them, hey, congratulations on finding your new home with, let's say Blanton Turner, who's a partner in Seattle with this product. Congratulations on your new apartment. Funnel, or Blanton Turner have partnered to donate $2 on your behalf, because maybe Funnel does one and Blanton Turner does the other, to charities that help other renters who are not so fortunate to secure a home. Would you like to participate? Right? And now all of a sudden you say, well, sure, I'm already putting, my $100 application fee down. Yeah, round up, I'll add $1 to that. That's where this has this massive ability to compound and really have huge impact. And we think about it like the Ronald McDonald's House charity that is separate from McDonald's, but it is core to the ethos of that business. And and Airbnb does something similar. Salesforce does something similar, but that doesn't exist in multifamily today. So that's where we see this going. And we think in a world in which, technology companies and property management companies are getting a bad rap and they're being, overly focused on profits, we think that model, maybe $1 million a year it certainly will not fix housing affordability, but that model we would love for our competitors to follow. We would love for everyone to be looking at how do we involve those of us, both the vendors, the operators, and the renters who can afford to help. How do we empower them to do so? And that's the future I envision, is that Funnel is the model that is followed for everybody who wants to give back to housing affordability and creating more opportunity in rental housing.
There are so many amazing people in multifamily, giving, generous people. And I think that if we can spotlight that more and more, definitely helps with, sharing that message and putting a positive light on the industry. I think that's great. Tyler, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I love the story. I think it's fantastic. So,
Brent, it speaks a lot to you that you reached out and that you wanted to talk about this. We've talked about it for a while, but thank you so much for bringing attention to this. Because again, it's if I'm not running this company someday, I really hope that we can look back and say, hey, remember how we made people more aware of these opportunities to give, and we, like you said, we changed the perception about housing providers and housing technology. That we're renter centric, all of us. We want to give back to this industry. We want it to be successful in the long run. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure, absolutely. All right, well, thank you, Tyler, and everybody have a great one, and we will see you next time.